So I always go around talking about myself as a stone-cold Wisconsin Dairyland country boy, and it's true. But it could have been different. The farm boy bit, my mom and dad actually were both city kids. And my mom, from the time she was a tiny little kid all the way through high school and into young adulthood, and her relatives have backed her up on this, over and over, she said, I don't care who I marry, as long as I don't marry a farmer. So she married my dad, a city kid with a chemistry degree, and he got a job in the paper mills in Port Edwards, and he was working there 2 years into the marriage when he chucked it all and bought a farm. But even the Wisconsin part could have been different, because I was conceived in the Peace Corps. I was born in '64, and so my parents were kind of first wave Peace Corps people. And the only thing I really know about their Peace Corps career is based on looking at slides of their training. It was a big deal when we were kids growing up, when Dad would come into the house after milk and he'd say, let's watch some slides. And it sounds a little silly now, but it was a big deal because I was raised in an obscure fundamentalist Christian sect. And I like to say that because people go, and they think I was raised inside a walled compound where we hoarded diesel fuel and fertilizer. We did hoard diesel fuel and fertilizer, but we used it to plant corn. But anyway, this part of the strictures of this particular fundamentalist sect was no TV, no movies, no dancing, no music, nothing like that. And so slides was pretty much as good as it got. And my parents, I think someone had given them a slide camera for their wedding. And so we'd all get together, a big old family, somewhere between 6 to 10 kids. It fluctuated quite a bit. And we'd be in there, and Mom would pop a big bowl of corn, and she'd make a batch of weak Kool-Aid. Why use a full cup of sugar when half a cup will do? It's still orange. But we'd gather around in there. It was actually very cozy because you'd get the whole family together and the lights would go off. And Dad would, he'd set up that screen and you heard that silvery zip sound when he opened it and hooked it. And then he'd turn on the slide projector and you'd hear the hum of the fan and you could smell that hot bulb. And there was the glow. And then when he'd hit the button, you'd hear the plasticky tunkety-tunk of the carousel rotating and the little click swish of the slide dropping down in the chamber there. And then about every fourth slide, you'd get the little upside down popsicle stick puppet show. While he tried to get the crooked slide to go in. But I loved those nights. I mean, basically what you were doing is you were reviewing your family history. And you looked at these pictures and you reacted to them and you talked about them. And to this day, a lot of our family memories are based on those nights when we watched slides. But the ones of my parents' Peace Corps went as followed. The first part of their Peace Corps training, they did it at Northern Illinois University. The only photographs they had from that section of their training were about 6 or 7 slides of broken tree limbs, downed power lines, ice-covered sidewalks, everything, the trees, everything was encased in ice. And what they basically said is that the most exciting thing that happened while they were in Northern Illinois is that they had a gigantic 3-day ice storm. So they took 6 or 7 pictures of the ice storm, and then that was it. Then the second part of their training, they were bound for Asia, so the second part of their training took place in Hawaii. So you went from these gray photographs of a 3-day ice storm in Illinois to wonderful, exotic, rich photographs of wild flowers that you'd never seen before, and sugarcane fields ablaze, and volcanoes and lava flows, all these wonderful images. And what happened is they had finished their training in Hawaii and they were just getting ready to ship out to Asia when they discovered that they were pregnant with me. And in those days, they basically, if you got pregnant, sent you home. So they had to come back home. Dad got a job in the paper mills. Well, now, when I was growing up in the early 70s up there in northern Wisconsin, it was a big deal for people to go to Hawaii. And especially it seemed farmers. And the only thing I can think about there, I'm pretty sure it was because like Farm Journal put on tours. And they do these Hawaii tours. Because you'd be in the feed mill and some big old round pasty white Scandinavian farmer would come in and he'd say, yeah, me and the wife are going to Hawaii next week. Ooh, going on tour. And a week later they'd show up and they'd be all lobster red and they'd be wearing some sort of outrageous shirt and a lot of times they'd be flinging macadamia nuts at everybody they met. And they'd have the little Naugahyde travel bag that they got from the travel agency. And on the side it said, Aloha! Exclamation point. So it was a big deal to go to, it was kind of a status symbol where I came from, to have gone to Hawaii. Well, we had a big old family, poor as such, and we couldn't afford to go to Hawaii. So whenever this would come up, inevitably there'd become a conversation about going to Hawaii, and some say, well, have you ever been to Hawaii? And I'd say, well, as a matter of fact, I got my start there. And I told this story for years, and it always got a little chuckle. And then one day, we're at a family get-together. I was clear into my 30s, and we're at this family get-together, having lunch, and the conversation turns to Hawaii, and someone says, have you ever been to Hawaii? And I do my own, oh, nope, but I got my start there, ha, ha, ha. And a little while later, I get up and I go to the kitchen to get some coffee, and my mom is in the hall waiting for me. And I can tell she's uncomfortable because she's patting her thighs like this. And my mom has a nervous tic. When she's uncomfortable about something, she starts patting her thighs. And my brother John and I both inherited versions of this tic, which pretty much rules out a career in international espionage. But anyways, my mom is in the hall there, and she stops me, and you gotta understand, my mom is a very devout woman. She wears her hair up and wears dresses, and I've never heard her say anything off color, no double entendres, but she's standing there and she says, I know you like to tell that story about getting your start in Hawaii. And I said, well, yeah, it's kind of funny, it's harmless enough, I think, really. She said, well, but I'm afraid it wasn't true. I said, what do you mean? And she said, well, I don't think you got your start in Hawaii. I think you got your start during a 3-day ice storm in Illinois. Could have knocked me over with a macadamia nut.